Right, hi there. I'm just going to be going over Pivot Painter 2.0 again for a different kind of asset, just showing how to set things up again, same as before. This time we're just going to be doing the Lady Fern. I'll have the link in the description below so you can just download this asset. So first off, we're going to Maya. I've already prepped this, so it's all kind of set up and ready to go. First thing I noticed, there's some bits that are kind of floating up in the air, which while they'll probably not be terrible, I mean it's better with this kind of stuff to have it all at ground level. So what I'm going to start off by doing is just creating a ground plane so I can kind of see where things should be, and then I'll just go through and select the geometry and move this down into place. Also, I'm going to have snapping turned on, so at the moment it's just on relative 1, so that when I move the other LODs down, they'll kind of, it's easy to make it so they follow. So that, for instance, this is just going to come down like 3 centimeters, and then this one will do the same. This is mainly because when things are blowing about, it's going to be taking the pivot location from where its hierarchy is set. So it'll likely put its pivots, well, it'll put its pivot on a bit of geo that's down below. I'll show you this max anyway, so to make more sense. But yeah, it's going to locate the pivot like closest to the geometry on the geometry, if that makes sense. So it's going to find a vertex, which will probably be this one here. I mean, what I often do with grass and sort of other objects like this is I subdivide this a number of times. So if I come finish my modeling and smooth this and smooth it again and delete the history. And it just gives you more vertices so that it can get it as close as possible. Also, this won't matter because this geometry isn't going to be going into Unreal or anything. It's purely for finding the pivots. So you don't have to worry about it. You can go as high as you want, to be honest, but that'll be plenty. And then just going to position these. You don't have to do this. I just find it makes them sort of look and work better from my experimentation with doing things. Some of these are too low as well, I noticed, so I'll bring them up. And maybe one more. And then I'll hide that because I don't really want to see it. I believe that's correct. Yep. And is there another? Yeah, actually, I'm just going to pause this because you don't really need to watch me doing this. But I'm just going to continue pulling like this up, and then I'll come straight back in. Okay, that's with everything kind of, as you can see there, it's just kind of all coming under the ground plane now. So it will just work better in regards to things blowing, or if you've got any interaction as well with the player or anything like this. So next up, I just need to split this out like I did in the other video. I'll do some of this as well so you can sort of follow along in case you haven't watched the others. So I'm going to separate the geometry and delete this, select all of these and delete the history. And again, I think I covered this in the previous video, but okay, that's interesting. Not quite sure what's happened. Okay, so I'm going to delete those because that's not really doing anything by the looks of it. And okay, it seems there's some bits that won't combine to the geometry, I'm guessing. Hang on a sec. Okay, so I'm going to go back and undo those steps. And I'll go back to before this was separated as well. I'm just going to quickly try it. So if I select all those, edit mesh, merge, Put my fresh head down as low as it will go. Apply, close, delete the history again. Mesh, separate. And hopefully now, yeah, okay. I don't know what happened there. I guess that's something to do with how the asset was combined, or something wasn't merged initially with megascans. That's easy to fix. So now, as I said before, you can just do this off the hierarchy because everything's just going to know what leaf should be what. So I'm just going to come up here, mesh, combine, and I can just go through each one now. And then we'll just come out of this. It's no problem. Oh, interesting. Okay. Definitely something funky going on there. That can go. And combine. Should delete the history as well. And I'll pause this actually because you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going through and selecting each leaf. You don't really need me to show you all this. And I'll be back in a second. Okay, also notice there are some bits of geometry in here that aren't combined. So yeah, these will just want to keep you updated with what I'm doing. But yeah, these just can come straight out. So yes, it's up to here. I'll just remove this from that grouping. And then I'll just go back to what I was doing. But yeah, just keep you updated with what I'm doing here. Okay, that's everything all set up and combined now. So everything's set up correctly and ready for Pivot Painter 2.0 to be applied. Next thing, so I'm going to pull this in. It needs to be quite this big, but every stem is going to want to be sitting on a vertex. So you're not going to want to have this over here, or this pivot is going to end up over here for this object, because it's going to pull to its closest location in 3ds Max when it's creating this. So yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, you kind of want to have everything as it is here. And like I said before, all of these are going to pull to its closest vertex on the what it's going to be pulling from its hierarchical. So I can't even pronounce that. The hierarchical base, as it were, I guess. So I'm going to put them all under the hierarchy, and I will call this A01 underscore stem. This is just the naming conventions I use for my own stuff, so I know what I'm doing. But yeah, use whatever suits you and your purposes. So with this all done, everything looks good to go. I will export this to the desktop. And I'm just going to call this, actually I'll say there's a lady for an A1. Export selection and replace that. Next, in 3ds Max, and I want to load my Pivot Painter script as I did before, and we're just going to cover it again. So it's program files, Epic Games, your engine version, engine, extras, 3ds Max scripts. This is the standard location unless you've obviously put it somewhere else, but this is where it will be by default. And then drag this into your viewport. And then next, bring in my asset. So import, desktop, Lady Fern SAO, and OK. And there she's ready to go. So first off, right, you can see I'm very good with 3ds Max, and my mouse is playing. Oh, there we go, yeah, middle mouse. So I'll select my stem, and I want to change the pivot location as before. So it's just up here, affect pivot only. This wants to be set to 0, and this -90. This is just mainly due to me using Maya and it using different axes, so that's why it's changed. But if you're using 3ds Max, yeah, just make sure again you're set up like this and the red pointing up. So with that done, I want to come into my prep tools, manage, and I want to create my selection set for the Fern leaves. So if I come down, selected, click add selected, create new set rather. You can name these as well if you want, and you can name all the leaves, but I just don't really need to for this because it's so basic. But again, depending on like if you're in a studio or something, they probably prefer everything to be more organised and you just save different versions and whatnot. But for my personal use, this is fine for me. Don't really need any of this. So then click Update, select your new selection set, select your mesh, which will be my stem down here. Pick mesh. Oh yes, actually, another thing, sometimes, I think it did work anyway, but it's always good to just select everything, convert to editable poly, because yeah, you can often end up with things not working. It did anyway, by the looks of it. And then create new pivots. And I'll pause this actually, because it might take a while, because this is quite a sort of dense mesh. So this might take a while to create the pivots. Right, okay, that's pivots created. And then if I come into bounding box, you can see everything's now pointing as it should be. So next up. Okay, so we only have 51 different leaves in here, so it should be okay. But actually, I think it definitely is okay. But if you go, I believe the threshold's 100, and if you go over that, you need to select everything, or everything that hasn't had the bounding box, where this hasn't actually been processed. And then you need to click Process Selected Objects, and it'll run through and process them. These were all done because it didn't go over the threshold. But yeah, just keep that in mind. I've noticed big trees and things you have to go through and do that, which I didn't mention in the other video. So with that all completed, I want to process and create my textures now. I already have a location for this. I'm just going to save it into my Lady Fern textures. But you can put this wherever you need. Oh, sorry, so I'm going to click stop my stem. Process selected object hierarchy, and oh, that's interesting. Oh, let me do that again. Select folder, and there we go. Texture's been written out. I'll just double check that. Yep, and here we go. I've got my pivot position and my vector displacement. So with that completed, I will now export this back out and take into Maya. So export, desktop, Lady Fern, replace, leave everything as is, and then I'll go back into Maya. I'll delete the asset. Apologies for my throat, it's a bit sore this morning. Drag the asset into Maya. Save view selected. I'll combine all my leaves, delete the history, and again, this just goes now. We don't need this, it's not a problem. All my pivots will be on here, which I'll show you now. So I'll set to face to fix the normal issue, which I always get with Max. Soften edge, delete the history. I believe all of these are using font 1, so I'll assign that. I'll also name that just so it makes sense. So I'll call this S underscore Lady Fern sub. And then, so all of those are using the same material, obviously. And then my final one is the billboard. And I'll call this S underscore Lady Fern Bill sub. Okay, next up, this is 801. And then if I come up to UV set editor, and then go into my UV editor. And again, same as before, you've got your UV sets and your UV channel 1 is just your megascans atlas. And then channel 2 has all the pivot painter pivots for the pivot painter information. And again, I'll just do the same as I did in the previous video, but no problem if you didn't watch that one. And I'll just cover it again. So yeah, I delete my light channel. I never use this light baking, so but obviously you can keep it and create a new channel set, I guess. And I believe Pivot Painter always uses the second channel though, so you're going to want to transfer the UVs. Actually, I'll do that for you anyway, so you can watch how to do that in a second. But first off, okay, So that's the set I want for my pivot painter. I'm in the pivot painter, so I'll select that. Select my LOD, mesh, transfer attributes. Also, with local, I've discovered it's better than world. Actually, I forgot in the other video. I believe this was set to world, but you're probably better to use local, to be honest, in regards to your sample space. These all want to be switched off: vertex position, vertex normal. Your UV sets are current, which we're both on, so current, and that's using the current UV set, not the one with the atlas. And again, local, and all of these just as they are closest to point. And click apply, close. And now when I come into my LOD, I've got my megascans, and then my LOD has the pivot painter information, so it will work correctly. In regards to, yeah, like I said, so what you could do, because I imagine some of you out there may want to use this information, so you can create a new UV set, and you then, I believe I simply haven't done this in a while, but I think I just select all these UV sets, and then I go to copy UV set to UV set. So now this one has it. Actually, let me come out and show you. So object. So then I have my megascans, and then the light baking's here, and then UV channel 2. I believe if I just now go here one, because I'm on my current, check here. So I'm on my pivot painter UV set, that UV channel, select them both, and then go to, I believe it's here. Nope. Okay. Mesh, transfer attributes. Again, same as all before. Click apply, close, and now you'll have UV channel 1, your pivot painter, and then your light baking is on the third. I believe this is the way it has to be set up. I could be incorrect there. Like I say, I just don't use the light baking information. So, but I mean, if you're using all this stuff, you're going to have a better knowledge of where things need to be. I believe that this will work. So anyway, I'm going to delete that UV set because I'm not going to be using it personally, and I'll just continue transferring them onto the others. So, I mean, again, I delete this just to make sure that it's all fresh. I mean, I guess you could just do what I did before there and just come straight over it. I just prefer to have a fresh base. And then, yeah, they're all on the same UV set now. So just go mesh, transfer attributes. And I can just run through them all now. So apply, 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 and apply. And then delete all the history. And as you see, they've all got. It's just a case of making sure you're on the correct UV set when you do this, though. Otherwise, you don't want to go over this UV channel and delete your UVs for your texture atlas, obviously. But as you can see, they're all now. That's still there. And again, for the billboard, same as before, really. I covered this in the other video that I did, but you can create a new UV set, and you can, if I go to UV, select the faces, UV, and just do a planar. You can move all the UVs up into the top corner. I always use something else for doing this, so hang on. I'll pause this quick actually and show you. So yeah, I always use like Ninja tools for this. I just find it a lot faster and easier because all the tools are just, everything's laid out faster for me. So I can just click up here and up here, and I can move my pivot up to the top corner. And like I said in the other video, this is where your main direction is always driven from. So your stem pivot, for instance, a tree trunk or any large object, even a fan will work, it's always going to be blowing mainly off of here. This isn't controlling your leaves as such, it's just controlling the main directional control of the overall object. But like I said in the other video, your best bet, since your last LOD as it were, standardly always has like a billboard or something else, or an imposter, or some kind of other texture. So you can just turn off all the other wind settings, and then that'll work anyway, and you don't need to worry about this pivot. It's going to be anywhere because it's using all of those pivots, as it were, but it's only using one directional source for the wind. It's not trying to control leaves and everything else, if that makes sense, which I imagine it does. So with that all complete, I will then come through, edit, LOD, create LOD, and that's now ready to go into Unreal. So I'll export this and I'll save it to the desktop for now. Easy. This might take a little while because there's quite a bit going on in regards to the geometry. And then if I come into my lady Fern, I'll just place this in here. I'll pause the video and then I'll come back and finish. Okay, right, just going to finish this off now in Unreal so you can follow along. So first, okay, right, just going to import the asset into Unreal. So import to my location, open, these all set. This in, it's looking okay, a bit popping, but that's just LODs and you can change that anyway. So I'm going to drag my lady Fern textures on, which I've already created. And then I want, as you can see, everything's not working because I need to add my pivot into textures. So I want to import textures, and then my pivot position and my vector displacement. Then this should just be set up as HDR. sRGB should be switched off. Should be set to nearest. Again, name it maps and world. Save. This should be set as vector displacement. sRGB. Again, this can sometimes switch on, so just check that off. Nearest. Name it maps, and this should be set to world. Save this. And then I'll open my materials, textures. And again, I'm just using the order trees, but if you're making your own, whenever you create the pivot painter setup with your material, you'll have these slots down here. And yeah, you want your pivot position, and then your vector displacement. And as you can see, everything's down correctly. And if I save this, and again, there's some things I perhaps didn't cover last time. So with your wind settings, your stiffness down here, this controls how much it's going to move. Basically, the main control, like the trunk, as it were. So if I set this to say 100, as you can see, it's pretty much static in that sense. It's just the leaves that are flying. So that's 0, and you kind of get a bit more pull off the wind. And again, when setting 2, this will be the leaves. So if I crank that up, you're just going to just have it moving to the base. And then if I set this on 0, you get the leaves swaying around a lot more. Wind setting 3 and 4, we're not even using on this. This is more for if you're doing trees, more complex things. As you come down the chain, it will then incorporate these other settings based off your hierarchy. You can just switch these off or as you need. And the billboard for this one, I've already done it, but I'll just cover it again. You can have the textures. It's not actually even going to matter if you have the pivot painter textures or not on this, since I have all these wind settings turned off. So it's only going to be animating the build. The billboard's just doing the main movement, as it were. So if I pull away, so drag this in, save as foliage type, and then I always have this set to movable, and turn on effect distance field lighting. Save. Probably crank this up a bit, just to 400, just for this, and then paint some in. Save, and I'm going to select. You can see everything's kind of blowing in the wind. back. And again, material with the billboards, you can tweak these textures a bit to kind of try and get them looking more consistent with everything else. If I change this to, it wants to come up actually one before. Down. Yeah, it's a lot of kind of fiddling around. Things I find to tend to better get things to look a bit more consistent at least. I'll probably have to actually go in and change the texture a bit. Actually, thinking about it, the saturation might want to come up, but I might need to change the hue, as it were, on the actual billboard texture. But again, that's just kind of simple tweaks to kind of get that more consistent, so it plays well with everything you're putting away. You probably won't even notice it blowing, to be honest, but you might do a little bit. So if I crank the wind settings up, again, I'm using this auditory setup. So you have like this BP foliage actor, which you can just drag into your scene. So if I delete that, and I come up my content folder, I believe mine's just under next presets, and then this is the material setup. It comes with all the trees, and if I drag in my BP foliage actor, you can then adjust the wind strength, so you can have things blowing around a lot more. And can't really notice the billboard blowing around actually, which is interesting. You should do. To be honest, it might also be because of the setup that I'm using. Just quickly have a look at the material. So I'll pause the video a sec. Right, okay. Realised some problems that I was having actually. So my billboard, the reason it wasn't matching, I have because I'm using this asset which I keep pimping off to you guys, the order trees. I had seasons switched off on the billboard, so it wasn't the health and other things like this weren't working at the season strength as well. Yeah, it's a pretty cool material actually. So yeah, I strongly advise using it or incorporating it into your workflows if you're into this kind of stuff. And again with the billboard, so it's now all kind of blowing as well. We're certainly blowing more than it. Oh, actually, no, I think I'll switch it up. So if I come down into my billboard, and you can change things in your wind settings to kind of get it to move more. So if I set this to 0, it will instantly kind of move a bit more. So this is slightly moving. But the other one that's quite good is local wind strength. So if I set this up to say 10, you kind of see that it's all kind of moving back in. That's probably your best bet for trying to get it so it's at least kind of following along with what everything else is doing. I mean, I've got my LODs popping quite early on stuff because I'm just using a laptop here. But yeah, depending on what you're doing. So if I save that out, and yeah, that's all kind of looking and working correctly now. Again, that's some like interaction stuff on this as well, which I probably will do some more tutorials on this kind of stuff if it's of interest to people. I guess some of you might be. But yeah, that's the workflow for that. The other thing, actually, I'll pause that and just come back and go over a couple of other things quick. Pause the video quick. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of cover something quickly. So because this is a fern, but this is the same kind of setup I use on a lot of ground foliage as well. Since it's not using a stem as such in the leaf, this is my stem. And so yeah, you can use this on things like grass or ivy, things that are just, larger areas of ground coverage. And again, this will work really well with pivot flattening as well and player interaction because it's doing all your pivots from the ground line essentially. And just want to sort of bring that up quick in case you're wondering how to go about doing sort of grass, well, large grass patches and other things. I will do some more tutorials on this anyway. I expect just keep people updated on how to do things between Maya and Max. And yeah, again, just ask any questions. I hope the sound's okay. I noticed it's not great on the other video. I probably will purchase a microphone, since just using a laptop isn't great for capturing the audio. So I hope it's not mumbling too much, and thanks for watching, and hope it helps. Goodbye.